present here today. Our apologies for the late start to today's post-cabinet press briefing. Coming out of today's cabinet meeting, I am joined by the Minister of Education, Minister Dr. Nyan Gadsby-Dolly, as well as our Minister of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, Minister Randall Mitchell, who are here to discuss two matters of importance in the public domain. And let's move straight into it, and I will start with Minister Gadsby-Dolly.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to our viewing and listening audience and to the members of the media. Today I want to deal with school and discipline mitigation strategies. The Cabinet has requested that I speak to the public on this matter. A young lady is injured and another one has been expelled from school, and these are both very unfortunate circumstances. It's important then to discuss what measures are in place in the education sector to deal with school indiscipline. There is a National School Code of Conduct which was last revised in 2018. It's available on the Ministry's website and it's available via a link on our Facebook page. This School Code of Conduct is 83 pages long, and it describes the role of the Ministry of Education, the role of our school personnel, principals, teachers, and various stakeholders, including our parents and our students, in maintaining a safe and secure learning environment. The National School Code of Conduct also speaks to the standards of behavior that are expected from our students, as well as teachers, with respect to attendance, punctuality, dress and grooming, integrity, cellular phone usage, and use of social media. Those would have been some of the last things added in the revision, that cellular phone usage and the use of social media. This National School Code of Conduct also lists and defines 27 categories of infractions and gives consequences for the first offense as well as repeat offenses. And these consequences range from informal talks, student conferences, parent conferences. Then you can go to suspension or expulsion, and if necessary, reporting the incident to law enforcement. So it lists it in a kind of progressive way. Currently, data is collected on 30 types of infractions which occur at schools. So the Code of Conduct lists 27. There are 30 currently that are collected. Some historical context and data so we understand what we're dealing with in terms of school and school indiscipline. For the following 6 types of infractions: assault, assault with weapons, bullying, extortion, fighting with and without weapons, the number of suspensions issued in 2015 would have been 1785, and that's just for these 6. 1785, in 2016, 2,053, in 2017, 2,486, and in 2019 we are at 2,529. The total suspensions issued in 2019, that's from January to December, would have been 7,630. For term 3, and coming down to the present now, for term 3 of 2021-22, and of course, when schools closed in March of 2020, you would have had a hiatus in terms of suspensions and so on. Mainly anything digital would have taken place there, but they would have been very low numbers. So as students have returned fully to school in term 3 of 2021-22, we have issued for the term so far 1,318 suspensions. And just for a matter of knowledge, in terms of the breakdown, most suspensions issued were for fights without weapons, 20.86%, 275. Possession or use of tobacco or vaping products, 11.84%, or 156 incidents. Assault without weapons, 9.64%, or 127. Disrespect or defiance of authority, 8.65%, or 114. Possession and use of alcohol, 4.86%. Sexual misconduct, 4.07%. Misuse of technology, 4.25%. Disorderly or disruptive conduct, 4.25%. And assault with weapons, 1.29%, or 17. And fight with weapons, 1.52%, or 20. And this is out of the 1,318 suspensions issued so far for term 3, 2021-22. Looking at when the infractions occur, mainly lunchtime, 31%, during class time, 18%, after school, 13%, break time, 10%, during unsupervised class time, 9%, and before school, 5%. So in setting that context, we understand that school indiscipline is something that we deal with all the time, and we are certainly dealing with it now in term 3 of 2021-22. In addition to the National School Code of Conduct identifying the infractions, the 27 different categories, and identifying what should be the consequences, there's also the role of the Student Support Services defined in that National School Code of Conduct. And the role of that unit is to assist teachers and parents in resolving student behavioral problems and to provide support for students through prevention and intervention strategies. This unit currently has over 883 staff members, personnel such as guidance counselors, school social workers, special education instructors, student aides, psychologists, diagnostic specialists, and they operate throughout approximately 625 public primary, secondary, and special schools. When our students came back out to school in February of 2022 on a rotational basis, as well as when they came out fully in April 2022, the officials of the Student Support Services who were at the schools did sessions at all of the schools to help transition. And those sessions had a theme, creating a positive school environment, the dawn of a new beginning. And the topics covered were absenteeism and its consequences, stress management, mental health and mental well-being, conflict resolution, how to discipline without abuse, and debriefing the home school experience, exploring emotions experienced during the pandemic and the physical reopening of school. Also, the impact of COVID and how it affected the family unit. Managing anxiety associated with the reintegration into the school system, that was also another topic covered in those sessions held by the Student Support Services Division with the students. In February 2022, when Forms 1 to 3 students came out of school after almost 2 years for most of them, the incidence of school indiscipline would have resumed as would have been seen before. From February 2021 to January 2022, there were students at school, but they were mainly from the Forms 4 to 6 level. So you had a very low level of infractions. And if we look at the breakdown of infractions by class level, for Form 1, you have 27%. And that's in terms of the students who are committing the infractions and resulting in suspensions. Form 1, 27%, Form 2, 27%, Form 3, 25%, Form 4, 18%, Form 5, 2%, and Form 6, 0.07%. So we can see that as the students go higher in the system, the number of infractions reduces, and therefore the main group that you would have the issues with would be the Forms 1 to 3, with some contribution from the Forms 4. So naturally, when students returned fully to school on April 19th, you would have seen that effect coming back into play. In that first week of school, 21 serious fights were recorded. And serious fights we count as over 2 minutes duration, really vigorous blows, and in some cases, injury resulting to the students. So schools opened on the 19th of April. In that first week, 21 serious fights. By the 21st of April, 2 days after school opened, the ministry would have written to the police service asking for their urgent presence at the schools, and 17 schools were identified based on the historical data as well as the schools that we were seeing presenting with the serious fights. 14 of them had a history of serious indiscipline. On the 25th of April, the Ministry of Education, along with TUTA, the Principals Associations, NPTA, and NMTS, met with the police to discuss the presence of the police in schools. And by April the 28th, the patrols were active in those 17 schools, and that was in the second week of the term. In week 1, we had 21 serious fights. Week 2, 6. Week 3, 4. Week 4, 3. Week 5, 3. Week 6, 2. And week 7, which we are in, would have been 1. So we have seen, based on the police presence in these schools, a reduction in the number of serious fights. In terms of the number of suspensions by week, week 1 we had 93, week 2 177, week 3 174, week 4, 212, week 5, 292, week 6, 257, and week 7, 113 thus far. So in terms of the data that is being collected from the schools, we are looking at the role of the police and how their presence in those 17 schools have made an impact. We are also looking at the fact that schools that don't usually have a history of serious indiscipline, we are seeing some upsurge in violence at some of those schools, and therefore we have to look very closely at how we can ask the police to further intervene in schools. What we have asked, though, is that the police look at schools in all districts and do the patrols in schools, in the streets after the close of school in all districts. Because another thing we have noticed is as we have ramped up the patrols, the police patrols in the schools and the vigilance, students are leaving the schools and going out into the streets to fight. So though the violence is going down in the schools, we are seeing these fights, 1 or 2 serious fights in the streets, and therefore we've asked the police, because of course the Ministry of Education does not have personnel to deal with these things or supervision of the students on their way home. So we have asked the police to assist us by increasing their patrols in all districts at the end of the school day to ensure that our students abide by the rules of law and order. With respect to gender, we have 30% females in terms of suspensions and 70% male, and 90% come from the government schools, whereas 10% in the normal-national schools, and those are at the secondary level. When schools began on rotation on February 7, 2022, and we noticed the violence creeping up again, by February 28th, the Ministry of Education met with the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service on the issue of reducing school violence. We met again on March 21st and April 4th, and we had widened by this time to include the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, Ministry of Sport and Community Development, as well as the OPM, and we wanted the inclusion of the Children's Authority, and that's why we asked the OPM to be involved as well. The objective of these meetings was to revise the school discipline matrix, which is a part of the National School Code of Conduct, and we wanted to include more initiatives to encourage positive behavior in students, as well as additional support for schools in terms of the peer mediation program of the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, counseling services for families outside of schools that can be afforded through the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. And we were also looking at new programs based on the MyLAT model, which is quite a successful model, where we can accommodate students who need a more structured environment to be able to pursue their education. The draft document coming out of these meetings has been completed and is with stakeholders, the education stakeholders now, for comment, and they have until June the 14th, 2022 to give us their comments. And once we do that, we will meet with them, finalize this document, and it will go to Cabinet for approval so that we can implement some of the areas that will require that formal interministerial contribution. Actually, today there is a meeting with the principals of 21 schools. I should have been there, but I am here to update the public, and so that's going on. But we are meeting with the principals of 21 schools, and that includes the schools that have a history of indiscipline. And we are discussing with them the allocation of resources that can improve their quality of teaching and learning and the maintenance of a safe and secure environment. We're going to be focusing on these 21 schools in the academic year 2022-23, and the measures we'll be discussing with them include having dedicated student support personnel. In some cases, especially school social workers, there is a sharing of officers, but for these particular schools, because of their needs and the needs of their students, they must be dedicated. So we're discussing that dedication of personnel, the assignment of learning support assistants. Those personnel can be used to offer supervision, because we've been noticing that students will be misbehaving in times where there's not supervision. So the assignment of learning support assistants to the school, training for the teachers and the principals. One of the things that is very important is that these schools have a high number of students who have performed under 30% at the SE. So therefore, the teachers have to be trained in a certain way to be able to deliver the curriculum and to assist these students well. And also the principals, we have to ensure that they have the right type of resources to be able to deal with the situation they're presented with. Parenting and education sessions coming out of, again, SSSD. And this is important because in many of the cases, when you see students acting out, when the SSSD officers go to the homes, and so you see there are complex issues that emanate from the family setting, the community setting. So parenting and education sessions, implementing that in the schools, life skills sessions, and proper maintenance of their facilities. These schools rely very heavily on the skill-based subjects, and therefore their VAPA facilities, their labs, their sporting facilities must be up to mark. So emphasis will be placed on these. So that discussion is underway. The meeting starts at 3 o'clock with the principals so that we can all be on the same table with respect to how we move forward in 2022-23. So just to reiterate, the National School Code of Conduct exists and is in force. All students, parents, and school personnel are advised to familiarize themselves with it, and this is why the link has been placed now on the Facebook page to assist in locating that document, but it is on the ministry's website. Students who commit infractions must be held accountable by school administration. Parents are asked to pay attention to their children's behavior in and out of school. The role of the parent cannot be overstated. Though teachers, school principals, SSSD personnel may do all they can, in many cases, too often, the parents are not reachable. And even if you reach them sometimes, the attitude of the parents when presented with the situation involving their child leaves much to be desired. So we're asking parents, please, to pay attention to your child's behavior. You are the final arbiter, and we're asking you to play that role. Principals have been asked by memo dated June 7, 2022, to ensure that where it is necessary, reports to the police are made with respect to infractions carried out by students. The Ministry of Education is carefully monitoring the disciplinary history of repeat offenders and those students on extended suspensions. We do have the names and the schools, and we are looking at their discipline as the reports come in. And though suspension and expulsion are not desired outcomes, the Ministry has no desire to expel our students or suspend our students. However, the Ministry will not hesitate to take action to preserve the safety and security of the school environment, and especially where we have students who are not responding to the efforts of the school social workers and the guidance counselors. So though school violence is not a new issue, it is considered a national issue, and it will not be solved by the Ministry of Education alone. We must engage with the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, because we have to provide support for the families of these students outside of the school setting. That is very important. The school can do what it can, but when a student goes back home and into their community, a lot of times what is being done is erased in that setting. So we need that all-round support for the families. The Ministry of Youth Development and National Services, as well as the Ministry of National Security, we have engaged discussions on how we could provide that alternative educational environment for some children. As I said, the MILAT model has proved very effective, and so we are discussing what we can do to adapt that to allow for the ingress of children from the education system, the mainstream education system, who need that level of support. And also the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, their peer mediation program, conflict resolution of the mediation services division. We need to ensure that in our schools where we need the most focus, these things are robust. And so we are discussing all of that with them, and that is a part of the report, and it will form part of the submission to Cabinet. So even though school violence is not new, we are not simply sitting by and applying old methods. We are updating that school discipline matrix to involve new methods of doing things to deal with the challenges, the new challenges that we have. We've seen across the globe that the return to school after the closure of schools for COVID has come with an increase in school violence. It's not something that's new or isolated to Trinidad and Tobago, but all of us have a role to play in dealing with this, the ministry, other ministries, the parents, and once we work together, we will be able to surmount this problem and support our children in the best way. So I provide this clarity for the edification of the public on what the ministry has done and will continue to do with respect to mitigating school indiscipline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Let's move on to Minister Mitchell now.
Thank you very much, Minister Ndinaruga. Good afternoon to the members of the media present. Good afternoon to the viewing and listening public. I am here today to give some encouragement and to provide an update with respect to the Ministry's collaboration with the Royal Caribbean Group on the seafarer recruitment exercises that are being done this week, beginning Tuesday. So Tuesday, there was one at Napa, Wednesday at Sapa, today at Shore Park, and tomorrow again at Napa. So, as you all are aware, the ministry, quite excitedly, signed an MOU, a very historic MOU, with the Royal Caribbean Group on Monday, the 23rd of May, 2022. And just to give a little background with respect to the signing of that MOU, as you all are aware, the travel and tourism industry globally has been the hardest hit as a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic. Not just here in Trinidad, but all across the world, all across the region, and inclusive of travel companies such as the Royal Caribbean Group, the Caribbean Airlines. Government had supported Caribbean Airlines for a number of months. And so, with respect to the lifting of restrictions, both parties came together. The ministry was approached by executives of the Royal Caribbean Group as a consequence of cruise tourism now being seen as less risky. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control in the United States, having lifted its risk levels, and of course, here in Trinidad and Tobago, the government of Trinidad and Tobago also easing restrictions. So it was a prime opportunity to ensure that persons whose employment had been disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, persons who had lost their jobs, the economic fallout, the employment fallout, those persons could be put into employment as quickly as possible. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, Royal Caribbean Group, they employed 85,000 persons worldwide, and as a consequence of the pandemic, they had to release a number of these persons. So there was significant employment fallout. Following the signing of the MOU, the recruitment events were set, and in terms of the application process, Royal Caribbean looking for at least 2,000 employees from Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago offering quite a high quality labor force. The Royal Caribbean Group designed a recruitment process which involved applying online through their portal, submitting that application, uploading certain documents, and printing a completed application. Those persons were invited to attend to the recruitment events at Napa, at Sapa, at Shore Park on the 7th, the 7th, 8th, and 9th of this month. What occurred at Sapa was a number of persons attending Sapa without having done the necessary applications through the portal. On Monday, at last count, there were 2,800 persons having successfully completed their information through the portal. But what occurred on the Tuesday was a larger number of persons showing up. Persons who had not submitted their applications, persons who did not have their completed documents, and they turned up hoping to at least have a listening ear or hoping to be treated with. What the ministry did in collaboration with Royal Caribbean was to ensure that those persons were not turned away. Those persons were encouraged to leave their information at Napa with the ministry personnel, and it now forms part of a completed database. And persons who are interested are encouraged to leave their information with the ministry. That is what occurred on Tuesday, that is what occurred on Wednesday, and I understand right now at Shore Park, the exercise is going smoothly, and tomorrow at Napa, persons are also encouraged to come and leave their names. So just to give a further update, hundreds of persons were interviewed by the Royal Caribbean officials there at the site, and hundreds of persons received offers of employment and accepted their offers of employment. This MOU is for 1 year, and it continues. Those persons who were not interviewed on the day, they will be interviewed at future dates, virtual interviews being conducted with the Royal Caribbean team out of Miami, but it is a continuing process. As I said, the MOU is for 1 year. There are a number of additional opportunities as well that I should report. A number of other cruise lines are also interested in a labor force from Trinidad and Tobago, recognizing internationally that we do possess a very high quality labor force. So those are additional opportunities coming forward. At the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, we are extremely eager to ensure that persons are put into employment as quickly as possible. Persons who suffered from the fallout, this opportunity through Royal Caribbean and the others that will come through the other cruise lines are incredible opportunities. Persons will go into immediate employment. They will be trained, and they will have an opportunity to earn US dollars so that they can take care of their families and they can continue along with their lives. So that is the update that I have for now. The recruitment exercise continues. Royal Caribbean have expressed that they are extremely excited by the quality of candidates that they have seen, and they are incredibly interested in continuing this partnership for years to come. So that is it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Mitchell. Now is the time for questions. So we'll take questions from the media.
Just firstly from you, Minister. Sanolala, TBT. I know you said it's hundreds of people who have already been receiving offers. Do we have a grand total of how many? I think it's 2,000 in total, right? How many have received so far?
Well, Royal Caribbean, they have indicated that they're looking for at least 2,000 nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. We don't have the information, the final information right now as to how many nationals have received offers, but I know that number to be in the hundreds. So at the end of the recruitment exercise, Royal Caribbean will be expected to share that information with us. But as I say, the recruitment exercise continues. The MOU is signed for 1 year, and it continues for that year. Going forward, they will be conducting virtual interviews. The applicants having completed and submitted their applications in the correct format, and they will be undergoing recruitment. They will be undergoing recruitment interviews.
In terms of the airlines, I think it's airlines just said that. How soon can we see that happen? In terms of the airline recruitment process?
No, I didn't say anything about the airline recruitment process. It was just the cruise recruitment process. What I indicated was that in the travel and tourism industry, the airlines were significantly affected. So too cruise, but cruise more so because they are heavily labor dependent, more so than the airlines.
In terms of the school violence, I know you said it's about 17 or so that were infractions that were taking place with weapons. What kind of weapons have we seen that's taking place?
Certainly, knives would be the most popular one. I don't have a list of the other things, but generally you'll get knives.
In terms of the suspensions, how long does this last, and what is the process to integrate the student back into the school? I know it would vary between student and student, but
Yes, it would vary, and depending on what the infraction is, the number of days of suspension would be allotted. The student support services personnel would apply counseling. Parents would be, once there's a suspension, the parents has to be called in, so you get a parent conference. The student support personnel would do counseling and so on, and so the student would be reintegrated after the time, or if it is something that is very, very severe, the school would apply for an extended suspension so that there can be an extended period of counseling and so on with the child as well as the family.
At Friday's news conference that you had, there was talk of a demerit point system proposal. Has any talks undergone any talks so far on that?
Demerit paragraph of the large report is a very, very small proposal that can be added to encourage students to behave positively. That report, that is not fleshed out, that is just a proposal coming from persons' experiences. The major parts of that report deal with in-school suspension, things that have not really been a part of the school discipline matrix, so in-school suspension, detentions, and how those would be carried out, which personnel of the school would take up that role, how we would have more and formal interaction by some of the other ministries and agencies to support the schools in terms of the life skill sessions, the parenting and education sessions, the peer mediation, conflict resolution sessions. So all of those form the meat, really, of that document. It's looking at the infractions, separating them into different categories, whether it's minor, major, severe, and looking at the types of consequences that come along with it, and including into those consequences more areas that can aid in student development rather than simply suspension or expulsion.
You indicated there was a bit of a decrease in the number of school violence incidents after patrols were beefed up by police and so on. If this continues or persists, is there a need to possibly bring back the police into the schools rather than just the patrols itself?
The police in the 17 schools identified where we've seen the positive impact of the police are patrolling in the schools. So they're patrolling in the schools throughout the day as well as outside of the schools at the close of school so that our students could, exit the school without the fighting. So in those schools, we've seen that. But what we are seeing is other schools that don't have a history of violence. And that's part of the fact that all of the fighting and so on is shared so widely on social media. There are children who take very great pleasure in seeing themselves on social media. And so in some cases, they plan what they're going to do, and they execute that plan, and then they look at the video very gleefully, because they feel like superstars. We have to understand we live in an age where people make a living out of being a social media content creator. So these are things that we have that are new to the environment now, and with the expanded use of technology because of the pandemic, our students are very, very versatile. A lot of them have very good phones and recording equipment and that kind of thing. So they use these things, and that's part of it. So we are looking at the trend in schools that did not necessarily have a history of that kind of indiscipline, and looking to see whether we need to expand the police presence in the schools. And the police that are in the schools are the community police, those that have the police youth club training. So they are very good with the students. So if we need to expand that, then certainly we will do that. So that's why the data coming in is so important.
Right, so my question, so my first question is, a lot of what you said focuses on discipline and the word, but are we talking about punishment? So we talk a lot about punishment and consequences. Are we looking at rehabilitation for these students, especially the ones who have more than one incident of violence or acting out or disrespect?
Which is exactly why the matrix is being revised, and that's what I would have mentioned, to include more of these positive behavior management strategies, the inclusion of life skill sessions, parenting education, in-school suspension, detention, where students can, even though they have done something wrong, they don't have to be sent out of the school in terms of suspension or expulsion. They can stay within the school environment and, be rehabilitated in that way. So that is why we are actually doing that revision and including other arms of the state, because we realize that the Ministry of Education alone can't do it. We need the input from the others, those resources, to be able to properly deal with the students and not just, as we say, not just punish, but rehabilitate, give them opportunities to develop themselves differently.
My next question is referring specifically to the girl who was expelled recently. was due process followed, especially because it happened so quickly, and what would that have entailed? Was she given an opportunity to defend her action? Was there an investigation? What normally goes into the expulsion?
The provisions of the Education Act are clear, and those were followed in this instance.
So just in terms of I know you talked about parents, some of them having a bit of an attitude towards this. Any message towards them to help with their children?
The message is that parenting is not for the faint of heart, nor is it easy. And we can't close our eyes to what our children do. All of us as parents would wish our children were 100% perfect, but the fact is that they are not. Neither are we. And therefore, we need to, as parents, collaborate with our school officials, work along with them for the best, in the best interest of our children. If our parents, as parents, we are fighting the school administration, we are not doing our children any good. And if we are presented with a situation where we feel it could be handled differently even, there is a way to do it so that we still do not work against the school administration. We can work with, we can object, we can, if we have to. But a spirit of collaboration is necessary. So we're asking parents, please pay attention to your children. It's important that our children know that there are consequences even at home for their actions. And so if they know that, then that guides their behavior a lot in the schools. And it would make the work of the teachers and the student support services a lot easier once we have that cooperation and collaboration. So that would be my message.
Just in terms of the girl who was expelled, is there anything, she's basically expelled, she's out of school. Is there anything that she can have somewhat of a homeschooling or virtual schooling?
Just to indicate that that is a police matter. Up to yesterday, the girl, unfortunately, was still in the custody of the police. So that's a whole different scenario, please. So I wouldn't want to go further on that.
And going back to the incident, has counseling been made available to the families of the girls involved, the other students and staff who may have had the party fight and who...
The student support services, yes. They would be in the schools giving the counseling, and the family of the child who is in the custody of the police, that family was referred to social development. They have already made contact with the family to initiate counseling sessions with the family.
And do you know if anyone has access to counseling services? Whether the family of the girl or the other students who would have seen fights or their families?
The counseling is taking place at the school, right? So they went into the school and support, additional support would have gone into the school and had mandatory sessions with the students. And the parent of the girl, who is in the custody of the police, she responded. And so they will, social development will organize the time for the counseling sessions to take place.
Minister Mitchell, with respect to the exercises that went on at Sapa and Napa, there were many people who went to the venues and then said that when they got there, they were asked for documents that were not listed as part of the application process, and so they were turned away. Do you have any comment on what might have occurred as to why that might have happened?
Yeah, well, persons were not turned away. That's the first point. Persons were encouraged to put their names, their contact information, a number, their telephone numbers, and their email addresses. We had advertised on social media and in the traditional media on the necessary application process. So first things first, you were to go to the Royal Caribbean Group's portal and submit an application and upload certain documents. At the interview, you were supposed to walk with a valid passport or an application for a valid passport, a police certificate of character, or the receipt for the application of a police certificate of character, your CV, as well as any supporting documents upon which you wished to rely. So those were the types of documentation. That is a synopsis of the application process, following which you would be interviewed by the Royal Caribbean personnel. You would then go on to do some medical screening, and then you would know whether you received an offer or not. And on site, you would be given access to a portal to accept or decline the offers received and then given the next steps. So those persons were not simply turned away. They were encouraged to put their contact information. As I indicated before, this is a tremendous opportunity for the nationals of Trinidad and Tobago, persons who were employed in the travel and tourism industry and whose lives were disrupted as a consequence of the fallout of the employment, or persons simply looking to engage in a change of career. This is an incredible opportunity. Persons who work on the cruise ships, they earn a very decent wage, and they receive very high quality training, and they're a part of a large multinational world-renowned company. So this is an incredible opportunity. The ministry makes absolutely no apology. We are relentless in pursuing the gainful employment of our nationals. We are constantly looking for other opportunities. As I indicated, there are other cruise lines who are interested in hiring our nationals, and we are all here for it, and we will do whatever it takes to ensure that persons are put into gainful employment.
And you said that there are other cruise lines that are interested in hiring our people. Has the ministry reached out to them to say when to come and that you have this database?
As a matter of fact, they have reached out to us. I have just returned from a cruise conference, the Florida conference, the Florida Convention Cruise Association, and a number of cruise executives met with the Trinidad and Tobago team. I was a part of that team, and they have indicated an interest in hiring Trinidad and Tobago nationals, and we are at some advanced stages with respect to those discussions, and very soon we will communicate with the public. Of course, we now have a database of employees, well, potential employees looking for employment on the cruise ships, and we will put that database to work and ensure that they are given every opportunity to work at the cruise lines.
Is that it for questions? Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, both the members of media here as well as the listening and viewing public. We hope that the information shared today was both useful and informative. And of course, before we close, I just want to again encourage all nationals to continue the vaccination process and also continue to adhere to the safety protocols, washing your hands, wearing your mask, and keeping your distance. Thank you very much.
I may not be right for you, but I'm right for somebody.
It's your girl Didi, and we are back with another episode of We Outside. You know we have been hitting you with events week upon week. Greatness happening, and it continues to happen.
I may not be right for you.